everyone. Welcome to Mission to Inspire. My name is Shola, and we've got a very spectacular guest here with us today. Her name is Brenda. Brenda, how are you? Welcome onto our show.
Thank you. It's so good to meet you and good to be here to talk about what we're going to talk about. I know, I'm as giggly as you.
I know. What we're talking about today, oh my God, it's so inspiring. And I'm sure a lot of us will benefit from it because it's changing, it's redefining a lot of things in church, in our personal life, not restricting us to a tradition. So yeah, I'm so excited that I'm going to hear this all from you.
I have a lot to say.
Yes. Um, Brenda, I want to say a little bit about you, but I think it's best if it comes from the horse's mouth. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, well, hi everyone. I am Brenda Seefeldt Amadea. Oh, I guess I should say Reverend Brenda Seefeldt Amadea. I'm a pastor, been a pastor now for 42 years, so that's my entire adult life. This is who I am. I am a writer, author, speaker, also on top of that. And I'm married to my husband, John Amadea, and I've raised 4 fabulous boys who have taught me the most. That's been the faith former of my life. And then my boys have given me 6, and I mean this, nearly perfect grandchildren. They are the best part of my life right now.
So you have 6 grandchildren?
I do.
Oh my
God.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a whole other part of my story. And that is just, we just tease that a little bit. I never gave birth to children. I knew I was infertile at a very young age. This was never going to be part of my life. And then I ended up raising these 4 boys. And that's a whole part of my story. And now these boys are now grown. They're all in their 40s. And so having 6 grandchildren from birth, being there, when they were born and holding these babies from birth has been just something I never thought I would have in my life. And it's been just fabulous because unlike my boys, my grandchildren have been loved from the moment they were born, have been wanted from the moment they were born, and have known about Jesus from the moment they were born. Excellent. So this part of my life has been just unexpected, and I never knew how much I would love it. I never would have guessed it.
Oh my God, God is good. God is good. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a testimony on its own. Great.
Yes. Yes. That just forms my life, by the way. I have so much going on.
So yeah, you haven't said anything about your book. So yeah.
Oh, you're right. I'm an author too. Yeah, so I wrote a book called I Wish I Could Carry Your Pain. And it's really part memoir, part instructional. It's 28 pages. It's not big. It's full of doodles. It's even got less words on the page, but it's really about what I have learned from raising my boys, from the people who have really helped me and walked alongside me. Those who have not offered me a platitude or a drive-by prayer, but who have really walked with me. And then I don't think I even told you yet, but we're recording this in January 2024. I just finished the final edits of a new Bible study with video series. It's going to be called Trust Issues with God, and it's going to be out late spring 2024. And this is Bible study with a video. It's going to be the best of some of my teachings at church that the people have really responded to. So I've been encouraged by my church people to turn this into a Bible study for publish. So I am just like yesterday sent off my first edits to the editor to be hacked, or maybe not hacked. I don't know. We'll find out. But I'm right in the process of another book coming out. So yes.
Okay, so you have another book coming out as well.
Yes.
Okay, great. So you're keeping yourself busy.
Yes. Again, my church challenged me to write this Bible study, and I'm like, Now I'm in the middle of it going, why did I say yes?
Why did you say yes? Oh my God. Okay, before we go on, if we wanted to contact you or buy your book, or how do we contact you?
My writer website is bravester.com. So that's brave, STER, like in hipster.com. And there's a contact form. There's on the front page, you can find how to order the book. I've got over 500 articles there that I've written. So it's a really big website. And I think there's a lot there for people.
You've got two websites though, the Largest Story Church and...
Yes. Largest Story Church is my church's website. And we are like you kind of teased in the beginning here, we are a different type of church. So wherever you're listening from, you can actually join us if you want to, because we meet through Zoom and we meet on Friday nights. And there's a lot of reason for that, but that's what I think what you want to talk about. But so it doesn't, so the church website's important because you don't need to be local to come to our church to be a part of us.
Oh, that's excellent. And that is what we will be talking about essentially today anyway. How we are going to be, joining your church service, but not the traditional way, making it flexible for people. Because, with a lot of things happening in the world, a lot of people will tell you they don't have the time, or the time clashes, or this and that happens. So it's really what we're going to be listening to today, what you're going to be talking to us about. I'm sure is going to redefine how we go to church. But before we go into that, I'm going to ask you a few this or that questions.
Ready?
Okay. Okay, so my first question. I hope you said you're ready. Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. Preaching on Sundays or engaging in your night discussions. So on Friday night is presumably the normal church service.
Yes, Friday night is our normal church service. Sunday nights we do Bible study, but it's the same format. And so the answer is our conversations on Friday nights. And I should have also added this to my bio. I am a 40-year youth pastor. And I've only become a pastor recently, even though I've been in church work, again, my whole adult life. So my whole heartbeat is for teenagers. And so I have always taught conversationally, as it is, because I work with teenagers, right? And so during the pandemic, a bunch of the parents of my teens came to me and said, do you want to start a church? And I was like, I'm a youth pastor, and they said, we would like you to start a church. And my husband's a worship leader, and we were in the same church together on staff. And they, so they came to both of us, and I got a worship leader. I could be a pastor, I guess. Anyway, so I adopted this conversational approach to teaching into our Friday night services because one, it's what I knew, but two, we began during the pandemic, and what we were missing faith conversations. We were isolated, we were managing, the world was breaking around us, and we couldn't talk about it with each other because we weren't in church together. And so we started meeting over Zoom because, again, that's what we had. And I just immediately from the beginning began to adopt faith conversations as a part of how we learn. We have very much of a learning environment on Friday nights. And I absolutely love it. Having preached on Sundays for many years, having taught at many conferences and retreats and camps, preached for many years. When I teach on Friday nights with a conversational method, I, for one, get to know when my teaching hits somebody, when it makes sense. And when I ask a question and then people respond to those questions, I'm getting wisdom that's not my wisdom. So all of a sudden, you're not just getting a one-person perspective on faith. We're getting a collective group perspective on faith. And this is such a gift. And the second thing we're getting is we're such a way now that if someone has a doubt about what I just said or didn't understand what I just said, they're able to express it.
Oh.
And again, I don't have to answer. I don't have to be the answer person because I'm the pastor.
Yeah.
I can sit back and let the other people answer with their life wisdom. And all of a sudden that doubt is actually getting addressed, not by a pastor who should know it all, but getting addressed by real people in real life with their life wisdom. It is such a gift. It's a transformative gift. So this or that, it's very easily the conversations, easily.
Wow, wow, wow. Not really attended a church like that. It's always come from the pastor directly. They are the speaker. They don't really ask questions. It's one way.
Yeah, exactly. It's one way. And I think the way church needs to change is less of that. I mean, in like we just say culturally, pastors, we've lost our influence. There's 1,000 reasons for that. I don't want to get into the negatives, but we've lost our influence. And again, I've been a pastor my whole adult life. So I'm not living like really in the real world because I've just been living in church world and leading in church world.
Yeah.
And so if I cannot be the one-way person and allow my people to share their life wisdom,
yes,
it is so much stronger and more impactful. And again, I've been teaching teenagers my whole life. I'm not afraid of questions. I'm not afraid of those doubts, So if they come out of adults or they come out of teenagers, and I've been there for years. I think I'm not afraid of it at all. So it's just part of our church.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much for answering that. So, having said that, how do you balance your role as a pastor, speaker, wife, and mom?
This one has been learned.
Okay.
I am, I just turned 60 this year. That's, one of those perspective years. And I say, I've learned this. I hit a pretty hard burnout when I was 27. That's probably because I'm an overachiever. And that burnout taught me a ton. In fact, my new book, my new Bible study on trust issues with God references this burnout. When you just are trying to prove yourself to God and trying to prove yourself. I wasn't even married yet and I burned myself out. So I have learned balance. I got married later in life. Thankfully, I got married after I've started learning balance and learning the priorities to prioritize a marriage when I got married later. So I had ruts to deal with, and we, both handled that very well, those adjustments. And so I think just with wisdom, the balance of my life is probably one of the things I prioritize the most.
Right. Thank you so much. So I'll ask you one more on this or that, and that would be writing. I wish I could take away your pain, or sharing stories on your platforms.
Writing a book is hard because it's complete and then left to be published and unchanged.
Right. Okay.
So, so it takes a lot of trust. Speaking of trust issues, it takes a lot of trust to turn over a finished product that can't be adjusted. Versus when I write my articles on my webpage or for the church webpage, those are like in process articles. I'm like, this is where I'm at right now. This is what God's teaching me right now. It's not a completed work because I'm not a completed work. And I write that way on my webpage. But when you do a book, it's got to be a full thought.
I'll just ask you one more question. So book writing or public speaking engagements?
Again, public speaking, going to get more of me in the works of what God is doing in my life, a more honest flow. A book, it's got to be a complete thought. And that, maybe because I'm also writing one right now, is overwhelming. In public speaking, you're going to get me And if it's a little clunky,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. So yeah, I choose public speaking.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. So today's topic is redefining church, inspiring change beyond Sunday mornings. And I know that's something you've been doing. You've been doing it since the pandemic, isn't it?
Correct. October 2020, we started.
Wow. Wow. And
Mhm.
how has it been your experience so far?
It has been, I say this with my whole heart, it's been fun.
Mm.
It's been fun to see my people. They come in through Zoom. We have some local people, but most come in through Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
and to see their faces,
Yeah.
to see their faces become animated or confused because they're on the Zoom box.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see that, and to see growth in the last 3+ years, to see growth, we just had a reflection question last week about the best thing we did in 2023. And I have to say, some of the things were stuff I planned.
Mm-hmm.
The most of the best things
Mm-hmm.
were stuff that just happened during church. But
Right.
the fact that it's part of their memories, it impacted their faith growth, and it just happened during church was, as a pastor, so encouraging to hear that I don't have to plan it, but I can set the people up and then see what the Holy Spirit does.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing, for letting us into that journey. So, can you share the inspiration behind your book? And is that your first book?
That is my first book. Yes. Yes. And the inspiration was, like I shared a little bit in the beginning, I've made a lot of brave decisions in my life, like going into
Right.
the ministry as a woman in the early 80s, for example,
Yeah.
So I've braved into pain as a regular practice. This is just me and Jesus. I just really trust Jesus, and I will make these braver decisions. But it doesn't always mean they work out. It doesn't always mean my life is going smoothly. And I've had some really rough times.
Mm.
And so there have been some people who have really come alongside me and carried me through my pain. I mean, there's been a couple seasons where I just shut down. I could no longer pray. Reading the Bible was difficult because it just caused me to ruminate on the pain. And these people would come alongside and read the Bible over me or be praying on my behalf, so I didn't have to feel the pressure to pray. I knew they were praying, just being with me, not being afraid of my pain.
Yeah.
This book is dedicated to these people and what they did for me. And I just compiled all that into this really creative, like I said, 28-page book full of doodles for what these people have done for me, so that you can know how to really help people when life makes sense. I mean, when life no longer makes sense.
Wow, that is so interesting. So you are writing about what you went through, but then giving reference to the people that helped you go through that as well.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
So,
And there's 3 pages in the book of the 28 pages of what not to do. And it's numbered. And this is the stuff that I learned the hard way.
yeah.
And great value right there. Those 3 pages are great value.
Wow.
And then the rest is just, there are so many good things you can do to really help people. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. So let's talk about the challenges in church, right?
Okay.
Going beyond the traditional norms now.
Yes. Yes.
What led you to establish a church that meets on a Friday night?
Probably a couple things. One, I'm not afraid of brave decisions.
Mm-hmm.
2, I worked for 25 years at one church as a youth pastor, and I was the one on staff pushing how we do church? How do we, as church was changing in the culture, how do we do church? I was always coming up with the creative ideas, listening to the podcast, never wavering from the power of the Bible and the church preaching the Bible. People are coming to church to hear from the Bible, not to hear positivity messages, not to hear about self-help messages. It's got to be Bible focused, but there's also ways we could communicate better as the culture has been changing. So I was always the one pushing for that in my church when I was there for a very, very long time. And so pandemic comes, I get laid off, my husband gets laid off. And again, it was these parents of teens. Here's my heartbeat. There's teenagers, and the parents of the teens are even more my heartbeat because they're the greatest influencer on teens, asking us to start a church. And they're the ones that asked for Friday night.
Okay.
I know, isn't that, they at this point had enjoyed their slower Sunday mornings as a family and weren't anxious to get back into that rat race of Sunday mornings. And when I said, okay, I'm like, brave decisions, I'm open. What do you want to talk about? And we, knocked down some days. And Friday nights does have some high school sports problems, but for the most part, it's still a family night.
Right.
People are coming home from a week of school or a week of work exhausted, and to come to church where there is rest for your soul is actually good to prepare you for the weekend.
Yeah.
Our worship music, because it's coming over Zoom. We don't have a large band. We don't have a lot of amplification. It's a guitar and two beautiful singers. So our worship music also is just very comforting and soothing, and I always call it restful. So after a week of frenzy, you come into church and we open in prayer, and then we have worship, and you can feel the collective breath happening.
Wow.
So Fridays is a welcome start to the weekend. We have to, kind of rearrange our mind, going church on Friday nights. It's Friday nights a going out night.
Yeah.
When really it's
that's what I wanted to say, especially for teenagers.
But it really hasn't been a going out night for a while. 72% of millennials prefer to stay home on Friday nights. Now, they're not teenagers anymore. Millennials are now in 20s and 30s, but they actually say they prefer to stay home on Friday nights. And then the thought of, once we had the pandemic and we had the excuse to rest on Sunday mornings, that has actually been quite welcomed. And then there's a whole segment of people who have got like church hurt, and to go into a building on Sunday mornings is triggering for them. So to safely try church again on a Friday night, coming in through Zoom, and I say to everybody, keep your camera off. We don't care if you want to be in the back row of church. Just keep your camera off. We'll let you be in the back row. Just come on in and try church. Try church. It's a little bit different. See if you can. I'm sure there's a need inside of you to be back in church, to be learning, to be in a learning environment about the Bible. If you try us, it's going to not trigger some of the power over struggles of church, where again, it's a one-way conversation, but you can sit and you can overhear these other conversations, and it's going to rebuild your trust, rebuild your doubts that may have been smashed because of a bad church experience.
That is very true. Thank you so much. Thank you. So thank you so much. Those were words of wisdom that we've been listening to and hearing you say to us. Your church actually encourages genuine conversations and value intergenerational wisdom.
Yes.
So how have you seen this approach foster growth and connection within the community or your community?
Oh, this is probably one of my favorites.
Right.
Again, world's oldest youth pastor. This is what I know, and I learned like back in the mid 1990s,
Yeah.
that for teenagers to really grow in their faith, they needed their parents' involvement and they needed the wisdom of older people in the church, not the
Yes.
hero youth pastor, but
Mm-hmm.
the older people in the church. So
Yeah.
I've been for, a long time now,
Mm-hmm.
really trying to build in these intergenerational voices into the youth ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I have my own church and I get to, make my own decisions here,
Mm-hmm.
and then to teach with these conversations. And to my surprise, because we're a Zoom church and, whatever, we do have quite a few older, wiser saints who have joined us. I'm just kind of surprised by that. And I'm so honored by that this wisdom that they share is so deep and valuable and life lived in the real world, not past a world. And the teens and the young adults, one, they get to overhear it. And this is such a great gift for them. And then secondly, when one of the teens or one of the young adults speak, it's like we value that. I think I've trained my people to, this is a youth focused church. And then this teen gets to speak a doubt and then get to have that doubt heard, acknowledged, not shamed, and then given back life wisdom. I mean, this is the stuff that's going to form a teenager's faith for the rest of his or her life. And this is happening weekly for us in church.
Wow. Your church is predominantly youth focused, or is it mixed?
It is mixed. I would love to have way more teenagers than adults, but right now we're more adults than teenagers.
You can't do without us. We just have to be there. Okay.
Right. But it doesn't change my heart and doesn't change, teenagers are fickle, young adults are fickle. But we're ready for them. We'll take the hordes when they figure it out. We will be ready.
Great. So in a world where people may feel deinstitutionalized by organized religion and culture, how do you navigate and balance that between, traditional and innovation, everything that's happening around us?
This is a deeper question. So I'm going to give you a little bit of study on institutions, because we, as a culture, we don't trust our institutions, and rightfully so. I mean, we have been used and thrown aside by institutions, and this includes the church. Our public school education institution is just horrible here right now in the United States. It's, recovering from the pandemic, and it's just been so hard. Banks, we don't, our banks, the media institution is particularly using us. I mean, so there's a huge mistrust in institutions. And again, the church is a part of this. But at the same time, institutions give us our identity. We go to school where our identity is a student, or you're a teacher, or you're a principal, and there's an identity involved because the institution gives you an identity. So going to church you're going to an institution, yes, but you're also given an identity as part of a church family, as a teacher in the church, as a nursery worker. We don't have a nursery at our church, by the way, because how could we? But you're given an identity, and that's part of your own identity. And so I think that's one of the reasons why church hurts so much, is because you have had to leave a church that gave you your identity. Again, these older saintly wisdom people telling you you're going to be okay as a teenager, telling you that your faith is okay. It may be awkward and feels like it's a failure, but no, I failed too. Here I am, me too. These identity moments come through church. But when we lose trust in an institution, we lose this identity of who we are, and that just doubles the pain. So in a culture that doesn't trust institutions, I'm trying to grow a church that says we are a church, we believe in the Bible, we follow the ways of Jesus, and we are an institution. Because to do that, we have to have parameters. You know, we have to give to missions. We have to do all these things. Will you trust us as an institution? Because we're going to give you an identity that is going to build your faith, but will you trust this institution? So we're just trying to communicate that. It's a very hard message to communicate because for the most part, we're out on institutions. And let's just say one more thing about institutions. Institutions reduce our anxiety. Now, culturally, we're in a very anxious moment all over the place. Because we don't trust institutions. Where institutions help us relieve anxiety, for an example of who will turn on the electricity. Oh, I trust the institution of the power company to turn on the electricity, so that I have less anxiety. You know, will there be a terrorist threat in Washington, D.C., which is where I live? I trust an institution to take care of that terrorist threat so I can live with less anxiety. So we do need our institutions. I mean, we really do need our institutions. They keep order in this world. But when our institutions overreach in their power, and the church has, when our institutions lose their own identity in the culture and then thus try to be more than they're supposed to be, like say the media institution, again, we lose trust. We want nothing to do with them. We want independence from institutions, when really we need to trust our institutions because they reduce our anxiety overall.
Right. It's just that some people see institutions like a box, you know?
Yeah, an impersonal box.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And sometimes,
again, who's turning on the electricity? You gotta trust someone to do that.
Yes, that's true. So it's all about trust, and
yes.
I think with the trust, it's in both ways.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, as a leader, it begins with us.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you. So can you elaborate on the importance of embracing vulnerability? And you know, because on your platforms, you know, you share stories about finding beauty in pain. So can you elaborate on the importance of vulnerability, both in our personal journey and in building supportive network around us?
Well, vulnerability is a word we hate for good reason, because you know, there's no guaranteed outcome. You know, sometimes we can walk into some vulnerability and be surprised with something beautiful, like love, like my marriage. You know, quite the surprise. Vulnerability involved in that, of course, quite the surprise. Sometimes, of course, vulnerability just means disappointment, and you again, here goes the trust issue again. You trusted someone and you were let down, and there's a hurt there. There's a betrayal that is very hard to recover from. But pain, okay, as Christians, we're not exempt from pain. I wish with Jesus, we had this little other category we could live in where life doesn't hurt us anymore, but evil still exists. Life still hurts. So pain is our beginning, or pain is our door to distrusting God. And if we just embrace the pain as our beginning, thus, and every brave decision involves vulnerability, because you're putting yourself out there in that brave decision. And if it comes back with pain and you consider it as your beginning, and you're going to grow through it, something always beautiful happens. Now, it doesn't mean, you know, you're free from the pain, and it doesn't mean it's going to end tomorrow, but something beautiful always happens because of the redemptive power of Jesus. Something beautiful always happens. And so we just
Mm.
got to embrace the vulnerability of pain as
Yeah.
our beginning, not as our ending, not as what smashed us, but this is just the beginning. So how will Jesus show up to redeem this?
Thank you so much. Thank you. How will Jesus show up to redeem us? I'm sure that's a question. I don't think anyone would really know what that answer will be. Me personally, I don't know how Jesus will show up to redeem me as a person, but I think building my faith, and especially around what you said, trusting the institution, the organization, the religion, culture, and the leader is one step that we need to take.
I mean, I know there's bravery in that and there's vulnerability in that,
Yeah.
but if you can get into a church family, get into a learning environment, I think both of those are both matters, where you actually learning, because that's also vulnerable, and with people you can trust in that church
Yeah.
family, that is going to give you an identity, and
Yeah.
it's going to grow your faith.
Mm.
I mean, we never grow our faith in a straight upward pattern. You know, it's really all of us are doing this with our faith, but it gets a little bit better when we're actually learning and we're with really good people in our lives, like the people
Yeah.
I wrote my book about. You know, these people can help our faith go like this on the upward trajectory.
That's very true. Thank you so much. And lastly, can you give us any inspirational advice?
Just any inspirational advice?
Yeah, well, inspirational advice, especially for those who are trying to get back into going to church again, or those who don't want to go back to church because of one experience or the other. But with your new innovative way of getting back into church, you know?
So I said, you know, it's just, as a pastor, I understand the pain. I understand the church's part of contributing to this problem. I understand it very well. Again, it's been my whole life. I've worked with some good pastors and some bad pastors. I call them like kings. So if you see a church where the pastor is like the king of the church and it's a one-way conversation, and it's generally, we say it's his way. I mean, you know, it could be a woman's way too, but it's, you know, I say that would be a hard church to trust. And I say, I agree with you on that one. So, you know, again, look for the people, look for humility in the pastor who allows others to teach, others to lead, others to share their wisdom. That's you know, shares the front of the room, shares the pulpit. These are all signs of a good, trustworthy church. And then try my church. I mean, I'm asking to be trusted. We're really trying. We have, we're meeting through Zoom, but it's been 3+ years. We have perfected our Zoom experience. We have bypassed the Zoom sound so that worship sounds in stereo instead of in mono, because Zoom is in mono. We've figured out how to bypass it. Our local setup here looks like a TV studio more than a church studio, more than a church, because we have all these cameras everywhere for the Zoom experience. If you're coming in through Zoom, you're going to feel like you're in the room as much as possible. Or you want to be in the back row, keep your camera off. And even if you want to just use my church, which meets Friday night, 7 p.m. East Coast time in the States, as a bridge to try church, I'd say trust me before you trust an institution, because we just want you to find that this pain you've been through can also turn into beauty for you too.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Pain can also turn into beauty. Wow,
It
what
always does. When you let Jesus redeem it, it really always does.
Wow. That is actually a big word of wisdom. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on our show today. We've really, have really enjoyed the conversation. And I'm sure our audience, they've all enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your journey post-pandemic up to now.
Yes, it has been one.
Transition.
Thanks for the good questions. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on our show today. And until next time, it's Shola and Brenda on mission to inspire. Thank you. And it's goodbye from me and from Brenda. Subscribe if you haven't done so. Like, follow, comment. Until next time. Goodbye.